Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of eCoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's show, I have with me a very special guest, Cash Miller. Cash is the president and CEO of Titan Digital, a full-service digital marketing agency headquartered in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. With an impressive educational background and military service as a U.S. Army veteran, Cash leverages his expertise in web design, SEO, social media marketing, and more to help businesses of all sizes expand their online presence and reach new markets. Today, he'll be sharing his insights and expertise on digital marketing success. Cash, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, Cash, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in digital marketing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my background starts in like 2007. As you mentioned, I'm a U.S. Army vet. I've always been like a small business owner. I tell people like I've only done two things in my life: is I've either run businesses or I've been in the military. And I, prior to what was my second enlistment in the military, in the Army, I had run a small business that in a different field, totally unrelated and stuff, but I got burned out and stuff. And I decided that I didn't want to do it anymore. And I needed to make a living. So I went back in the military. I had family to support and stuff. But, and at the time I was like really burned out. I said, I'm never going to do this again. I just can't do it. I'll make a career out of the Army. It was like my second time in and stuff. And I'm like, but I got the itch really quick to like, it was like 2007. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do the Army thing, but I don't know, like I still had that entrepreneurial, itch that I had to scratch. So I decided it's like, hey, what are people doing online and stuff? And I'm seeing like, there's all sorts of magazines and e-zines and things like that. And I said, well, why don't I start putting up content online and I'll tell people all the mistakes I made so that they don't make them, when they're running their own company. And well, I had to do that. I had to build my first website. And I'm just doing this in my spare time and stuff, and I build it out. And eventually I'm like, okay, I've got this thing built out. And I realized like quickly that I didn't want to write all the content. So I needed sources of content. I actually started contacting like business coaches. I would see them online and they have content. And I'm like, okay, well, how about, can I use your content? I would, contact them, request permission to republish and stuff. And generally I'd be able to get it and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, I've got a website, I've got content. Now, how do I actually get traffic? And, I'm doing this in my spare time and I'm an Iraq and Afghanistan vet and stuff. So going to those places, like you have downtime. So I work on this on the side and I'm like, okay, I need to get traffic and everything. And so over time, and back then, everybody was self-taught, right? It's like there weren't a lot of like courses or, there were courses, all sorts, like online people, pay for this, try that. I tried affiliate courses. I tried, everything I can think of to like learn all I could about SEO. And over time, over the 4 years that I spent in the military, I'm like, I get to the end and I'd been building this thing up. I'd gotten my traffic up and stuff. I'd learned everything. I had some of the business coaches that I was dealing with start asking me about getting them traffic to their sites, and they were willing to pay me to do it. So I'm like, hey, they're willing to pay me. Okay. Like my first ever like real client was actually a mergers and acquisitions account. The company dealt with, in the M&A field, and I would running pay-per-click ads for them. And they had no clue at the time that like I was running their paid ads on Google from Afghanistan. Because I wouldn't tell everybody what my day job was, Of
course not. Why? They don't need to know.
It was freelancing and stuff. It wasn't like, hey, they were, paying me to manage the ads and write them and stuff. But I get to the end of my enlistment and I got a choice. I can either re-enlist and stay and really make it that career. And at that point, I'd already been in the military about 7 years. Between two enlistments, I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I wonder if I could, can I do this SEO thing and make a living at it? And I decided, I'm willing to give it a shot again. I know a great deal about this. I think I can do it. I got people that are willing to pay me. And so I started a company.
Okay. So this is very fascinating, Cash. What was the difference between the first time you started and your reinvigoration? Like, what was the first business industry or model that you were trying to start?
Well, the first one was actually it was an upholstery business I took over from my father.
Okay.
I got out of the military in 1998 originally.
Okay.
I was young. I did a 3-year stint. I was burned out at the time on the military part. And he said, "Hey, you want to take over? I don't want to do this anymore," but it's, it had an income. And I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we had a lot of casino and restaurant clients. I worked with commercial accounts primarily, and I grew that business to be, about $1 million a year or so. But the field itself was tough. It was just, so it was a totally unrelated, but I learned a ton. Eventually I had a staff of a couple of dozen and such, doing the work.
Okay.
I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, I was working, you talk about the guys
16 hours a day.
Yeah, every day, and going on Saturdays, going on Sundays. Eventually I'm like, I was so burned out. And when you get burned out like that, you're at the point where I don't want to run a business, period. It's so hard.
I hear you.
That was something I took over versus I'm starting from scratch. And so part of the challenge was, could I build it? Like, I built that up, but it had a start point,
Yeah.
This was, can I build it up? And I am the start point. It is
You're starting from scratch.
Yeah. I'm starting from scratch and stuff in a field, that is like, that I've been learning in the last 4 years and stuff, but I don't even know what that field, I never worked for an agency. I never had that kind of exposure to it. So
wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's like, can I make it work? Can I do make the challenge? Can I take it on? And I mean, like, first thing I did, and like, you're getting out and you're trying to make all this plans, and it's like, what's my runway? How long can I survive before I got to, give it up? Because I've got a family, I've got bills to pay, I've got everything. And I'm like, so it's really taking a risk and jumping off the cliff when you start something, because, it's like, what's the backup plan? The backup plan is I go work for somebody, which I don't really want to do.
No, you don't.
And there's a point where you have to decide, do you do it? Like, when do you stop trying? Now that was like 2011. So, it's 2023. So a dozen years later, it's worked out.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Have you always had the entrepreneurial itch? You kind of mentioned that. I mean, sounds like your father started that upholstery business. I'm assuming that was the one that was doing restaurant upholstery in Las Vegas. And
we did a lot of restaurant seating and stuff, new manufacturing and things. I'd build out restaurants, similar, contract type work. But it kind of runs in the family. My father never worked for anybody. My uncle was really bad at working for people. I've got a cousin that's not good at working. We're just not really good at it. We don't like the restrictions. Yeah.
You're either like, I think you're either born an entrepreneur or you're not. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've reached a level of success that I would have expected by now, but I know that I can. And there's certain reasons for that I won't go into. This interview is not about me, it's about you. But it's interesting how you're either an entrepreneur or you're not. Like, my wife's not an entrepreneur. She's an employee.
There's certain characteristics. Yeah. I mean, I read a lot about companies and how they've built up and stuff, but there's certain things being an entrepreneur that you have to understand that, if you are not good with risk, you're not going to be a good entrepreneur.
No, you're not.
And you also got to be good with heartburn, because there's going to be times when it's extremely stressful, and so it is not for everybody, because
no, it's not.
But if you are the person that wants to be able to make those decisions, that can handle the risk, really wants to be able to push the ideas and stuff that you're trying to pursue, whatever the business model is, and you like experimenting with new things and knowing that you're the ultimate decision maker, then it's going to be more for you. I would not fit in with a corporate structure. Yeah.
I know it's hard when you're an entrepreneur, and if you try and get a job, it's hard. That's why every single job I've ever taken has always been a job that would help to accelerate my skills as an entrepreneur. For instance, I alluded, anybody who listens listens to the show knows this. I went and sold cars for a period of time because I knew I needed to learn how to sell. as an entrepreneur, what everybody needs to learn how to sell. It's like, what better way to learn how to sell than to take a commission sales job? I was running my own business within a business. I wasn't an employee. Certainly I was acting as one, but it's not typical setup where like you either have to make it in that industry or not. They don't care. They don't hold your hand. They don't provide you any training. They don't provide you any direction. You're either sink or swim. And it's a very sharp atmosphere, not one I really like anymore. But the point I'm trying to make is that taking a job to like improve your skills and, I had a good manager who was like a mentor. Go ahead.
Well, I know a lot of agency owners that, like the typical route for a number of them is they worked for an agency. So they learned the business, from the inside. And then they decided, okay, I know what I need to know. I can do this on my own. And that's how a lot of, advertising agencies and stuff, they'll get their start traditionally, and they'll have connections and stuff to help them get them off the ground.
Yeah. How did you compensate for that then? Because I never worked for an agency either, and I started my own agency. Sometimes I think I should have gone and worked for an agency. How did you figure it out? Like, for instance, the benefits of going and working for an agency, let's talk about that for a minute, is you learn the SOPs, you learn the business, you learn the negotiation, you learn the packages to put together, you learn, there's so much you learn. And I heard one person say, if you want to be good in business, don't go work for a corporation. If you're an entrepreneur, go work for a small business, because then you learn multiple things in the business, not just one role. So, but the point I'm trying to make is Cash, how did you navigate those waters of like figuring out how to put your packages together, how to organize everything, organizational structure and roles and responsibilities? I mean, there's so much to it, like, that I know now.
And if you work in an agency, you understand the layout and stuff. I think there's two parts to that. If you work, a lot of it is time, right? If you work in an agency, what you're going to have the advantage of, you're spending your time to learn the model. If you, and you could spend 2 or 3 years but that's 2 or 3 years lost. So, but you hopefully come out more educated when you get a start. If you go straight into it and you don't have that, there are advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is, well, I didn't waste 2 or 3 years working for somebody else, right? But I didn't come away with that education either. So I'm gonna naturally make more mistakes. I'm gonna have more trial and error. But and so I think you're going to have, your learning curve is a lot steeper, obviously. But you also there's an advantage to starting from scratch. When you started, you wouldn't have had preconceptions about how things should work. I have a manufacturing background, and so what I look at from an agency standpoint to be able to make money and stuff is I look at the labor and stuff. I look at the processes more, because in my agency, we build a lot of websites and stuff, and I'm looking at how do I make things more efficient. Whereas traditional, like if I'd worked for a digital marketing agency or something, or an advertising agency, they might not look at it that way. They want the best way to work, and I want that too. But you're bringing a different perspective to it and looking at things they might not.
Yeah, that's fascinating, because I interviewed. I have sometimes a memory problem. I interviewed a young man from Australia, and he has an award-winning SEO agency, but he was homeless at one point, doing SEO for free for people from a laptop computer in McDonald's free Wi-Fi and other Starbucks free Wi-Fi. And his story is pretty amazing, but he has it's funny that you mentioned that, because we were talking and he has a mentor who's in manufacturing. And he does manufacturing he has a full license for Lind chocolates in all of Australia. And he mentors this agency owner. And he said, Matt, you would be very surprised at how much correlation there is between manufacturing and an agency, especially when it comes to SEO and web design, because we build links and we're manufacturing links, we're manufacturing content, and learning the business side of things. Do you think that, number one, this leads me to my next question. Do you think that your experience in running the upholstery company or helping to do that gave you kind of a little bit of an edge, or at least some qualifications to be able to run the agency that you're running. And do you think that also your experience in the Army helped you further on top of that?
In a couple of ways, it did. Yeah, the Army experience. Yeah, like I'm a total believer in that military experience is good for people and stuff if you take it the right way. You should try to
Yeah.
better yourself and everything. But one of the things you see is a lot of the ways not to manage because of the fact that it is very, it's not a democracy, right? And
No, it's not.
yeah, and in business, truthfully, is not either. You can have aspects of a democracy, but somebody has to make the ultimate decision. But
Yeah.
what you learn is how to treat people and how not to, because in the military, it can be very domineering with people in charge, and you sometimes see people in charge that should not be. But
Okay.
because of the inherent promotion system, the way things are structured, you will end up with people in positions of responsibility that you might not think, other people that have to work for them would disagree that they should even be there. It's the nature of the system. But, I think from a leadership standpoint, let's say you start to develop your own style. You say, what you see, what kind of works and doesn't work. You see good leaders and you see bad leaders and stuff, and you kind of figure out what you want to be. And in any business, you need to have, you have to be a leader if you're going to, an entrepreneur.
Oh, for sure.
Staff, it's a leadership thing. In the case of running the other business, one of the things I learned, and I had, a couple of dozen staff and stuff, and I dealt with a lot of large corporations and stuff. It taught me how to sell, and which, is a requirement. We need to know how to sell if you're a business owner, but also it taught me the perspective of the business owner. When we're working with clients, we work with a lot of like home service, people, for example, roofing companies and landscapers and stuff. And then we work with a lot of insurance agencies and lawyers and stuff. They're all running their own businesses. And I think what it taught me is I can put myself in their shoes and what it might be like to run their type of business and the challenges they face. And so if I'm understanding that better, I can better direct what we're doing internally to benefit them. The agency owner, I think some of the traditional ones, you can be a little disconnected. I've seen where, if you grow up, if you grow up in an advertising agency and that's what your career is, you're like, I want this great creative and I want this, you want to put out great work, but you forget who you're doing it for, I think, and what their mission is. And so I think that's that benefit of it.
Yeah. I see people start agencies that have no experience in business. They just think they know about marketing. Some of them think they know about marketing. They don't. And some of them do know about it. But some people for instance, I'll put a for instance out there since everybody knows I come from the car industry. Everybody and their dog wanted to start a car dealer marketing agency because they looked at car dealers through marketing through dollar signs, because the budgets are very large. Like I managed $1.5 million to $2 million a year marketing budget for one dealership, family-owned dealership. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they look at it that way, but they've never sold a car in their life. And it's fascinating. And I see other people trying to position themselves as real estate experts, but they've never sold a home in their life. So it's interesting you say that you had experience as a small business owner running the business that you ran to be able to put yourself in those shoes. And yet some of these other people or entrepreneurs are trying to start. So do you think that people should, like, for instance, if someone wanted to be a mortgage, like if I could go back, Cash, 20 years, I would have went into real estate and I would have become a real estate or a mortgage broker. And then I would have used all my marketing skills to grow that agency or grow that mortgage brokerage or that real estate brokerage. I probably would have started both. And somehow exited them and then started a real estate marketing or mortgage marketing agency before. For instance, Alex Hormozy, I'm not sure if you're familiar who he is, but he wrote the book $100 Million Offers. And he, by the time he was 30, was worth $100 million. And now he has a YouTube channel where he teaches people how to scale. It used to be like, if you're not doing $10 million a year in ARR, don't contact me. But if you are, contact me and fill out my application so we can get you to 100 million or whatever the number is. Now his number is up to 30, but he has experience. He started a gym and exited the gym and made tons of money off of gym and supplements and all that. And now people want to hire him, but they can't hire him unless they make him a partner.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to say, I mean, that's one route to go in regards to putting yourself in the shoes of, it probably gets an advantage, just like the advantage that you had as a result of running the business. Would you agree, or am I crazy?
No, I totally agree. Because if you, for business owners and stuff, like you do need to be able to put yourself in their shoes, and you need to be able to, even if you haven't run a specific, like another type of business, maybe the marketing agency that you start is your business. Okay. You need to take the time, I think, if you're in sales, if you're the owner and stuff, depending on the client, like over the years, we've signed a number of manufacturing clients as an example. Now, I have a manufacturing background to some extent, but I don't necessarily like, I had a client, we have a client that we have done marketing for and stuff. They make ball bearings. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And well, I've never manufactured a ball bearing in my life. I never even could. So when we signed him, I said, "Hey, I'd like to visit. Show me, what you actually do, so I can understand it better." We're working with a school right now. It's a private school, but it's not your typical private. They do a lot of like one-on-one teaching for with the students and stuff, instead of a traditional classroom and you've got 20 students or whatever. And so they're, so I can understand who their customer base is, because, it's high income, parents and stuff that can afford these kind of services and stuff. But I needed to understand, their model, why they got, why they did it and stuff, and all the other things that they're offering and stuff. So we go there, we visit, we sit down, we, like, show us how you operate, so we have a better understanding of who your client is, but what you're trying to tell them. And in fact, like sales language, just as like last week, I took a writer with me and we went and visited, and we talked with some of their administrators. And I said, look, I'm a parent. And if I was here and you're trying to convince me to enroll my kid in your school, what would you tell me? I wanted to hear like convincing language, they're going to, it's one thing that I contact you. What do you say to me to get me to enroll my student with you? And then I let them go, and I just kept probing for, different answers, because I'm looking for sales language. I'm looking for things I can use on the front end, and the content we do on the website and stuff, because what they were getting right now wasn't converting, and they were new for us. They were leaving, who they were with. And so I think the better you understand the business, if you take time out, it can apply across. If you work with a plumbing company and you've got another, they're going to be fairly similar. They all want the same kind of audience, but you need to figure out the first one to be able to apply it to others.
That's fascinating. So in other words, like, you can compensate for not having actually worked in the industry by going and spending some time in the business.
Yeah.
For instance, I know. Yeah. It makes so much sense. Because I had a friend who, there was a company up here called Simply Amish, and they're Amish people, and they make handmade furniture, and it's damn good. Excuse my French. It's really good handmade furniture, like $8,000 for a bed frame.
Yeah.
But it's like wood carved hand. It's phenomenal. Well, he went and spent, I think, a week or 2 weeks living with them to be able to write the sales letter that he wrote in order to generate business and create value. And so, it may have not been that long, but the point being, he did what you said, and he was able to write such a much better sales letter. I remember the sales letter he wrote; it was phenomenal. And it made the money.
Right, and the thing is like I say, the more exposure you have to different businesses and industries, you'll get better as a marketer. And the different types of clientele that you deal with. And I think on the like the flip side, stay away from what you don't know or don't want to work with. I don't do e-commerce. I've got some exposure to e-commerce stuff, but I don't even want to go near it. There are people that are going to be much better than I am, to hire. Car dealerships, I typically don't work with them. I've had some exposure. Some of the people that are out there that are doing it are very good at it. And I think, that's one of the things you try to find. So know what you're good at. Don't try to be like everything, don't try. Yeah, just because the
Interesting.
client has money, it doesn't mean it's the fit for you,
Yeah.
and you're not going to
Yeah.
be the best fit for them. Realize that limitation, but
Yeah.
then the areas you want to go in, get really good at it. And that means understand who you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah. E-commerce is something I've shied away from, but for some reason I always get pulled into it by certain projects and certain relationships. And I know a lot of agency owners that won't touch it. And one of them said to me, Matt, e-commerce is 3 times the amount of work. And usually clients don't want to pay 3 times the amount of money.
Yes.
And I know one agency owner here in my local area. I won't say the name of the business because that would be wrong. He was doing WooCommerce and other such projects. So Matt, no matter how much money I charged, I always broke even or lost money. I charged $40,000, $60,000, $80,000. And project scope creep would always eat up the budget. I never made any money because we don't even bother anymore with e-com. We're just Shopify consultants. That's all we do.
Yeah.
And you have to have the resources and someone who's interested in Shopify or something like that to be able to do that. And, yeah, it's an interesting business model. I had someone contact me who wanted to refer someone to me who was a startup and wanted to start an e-commerce business. I just said, no, 20 years ago, or maybe even 10, I would have said, oh, sure, I'll meet with them. But no, I'm like, no, tell them to go use Shopify. Tell them to use Shopify or a WooCommerce self-hosted platform like Nexus. Because no, sorry.
Yeah, we do some e-commerce builds and stuff. And you're right about, they always seem to like, if there's not enough money, I will do the same thing. I won't touch it. Because the scope creep always kills you on them.
Yeah.
And I won't do marketing campaigns. I've done a couple, and you have to do, to me, it's high-end products, high price products are the only ones to even explore, but I won't explore them. I've had my exposure. I'm good. I'm done. I'll build you a site potentially if you're willing to pay enough, but otherwise I don't have anything to do with it.
Otherwise, not interested. So no, that's good to know what you're good at and what you're not good at is phenomenal. Hey, you shared so many golden nuggets with us that I didn't even get through even half the questions I had. And I know we're coming to the top of our time, top of the hour and end of our time. What's one takeaway you'd like people to get from this episode?
It's, if you're in marketing, and you're either aspiring to be an agency owner or you are, and you're trying to scale and stuff, like I say, it's a lot of work. And I think, definitely know what you're good at and what you want to pursue and what you have a passion for, who you want to work with. I think it's one of the most important things, because otherwise, don't take on every client just because there's some money there. Some of them are just not going to be a fit. And, you have to realize that. So hone in what you are doing. Like I say, while we have a full suite of services, we won't work with every company. If you, stay straightforward like that, like say, know what your own mission is, know who you're going to work best with, who you're going to, because marketing, if you do your job well, as marketers, I think the one thing we have to remember is you have a large impact, and a lot of marketers forget that. And that impact comes from, like, if I do my job well, and if my job is to drive leads to a business, and I drive a lot of leads, and then they increase, that company, that client I'm working with, they increase their sales. They potentially hire more, people on their end. So you're a job creator potentially if you do well on your end. You're also potentially going to help the people that work for that business make more money, not just the owners of the business, but if they're treating their employees right, and they're increasing salaries and things like that. So you're providing opportunity. You're actually supporting families. If you do the trickle down, where it starts,
I know.
You have a lot larger impact than you may realize. So that's one of the reasons to kind of get to know the people, a bit of who you're working with. You'll have a better understanding of what that impact is.
I saw that exactly what you're talking about with my impact at the car dealership that I worked at. They had to hire more salespeople. They had money to finally renovate the building. They had hired an additional, the dealer principal hired his own executive assistant, for Pete's sake. So if we do our jobs right, How do you handle the stress of that though? Because that was very stressful for me Cash. I knew that people were going to make or break paychecks based on what I did at my computer. And that's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. And definitely I've felt it over the years, especially if you develop relationships, that are like tighter than normal with certain clients, which, I certainly have, some, everybody does. So I think I don't think you worry about the stress. You just keep it in mind. You keep in mind that impact and you do your best. And if you feel like you've done your best at it and you've done everything you can to do right by the client, like I say, not everything's going to work out. That's just the nature of it.
That's true.
And the other thing too, to keep in mind, not every client you work with is going to appreciate what it took for you to do your best on their part. They're not going to know the ins and outs. We work in a business that often our clientele is not very grateful for the work we do, even if no matter how outstanding it is.
True.
So always keep that in mind, but then appreciate when they do get it. When they do, say thank you for everything. This has been such a benefit and stuff. Knowing that, like I say, praise is usually, not as often as criticism.
True.
But when you get it, appreciate it, relate it to your team, the work that they've done and stuff, because knowing that it's not you, it's everybody else that you have working for you or working on that account. So make sure that everybody else feels that too. So
right on. Hey, it's been an absolute. Go ahead. If I don't want to cut you off.
I say but no matter what, you're doing good. If the client's getting results, you're doing good work. So keep that in mind, regardless of whether they notice or not.
Yeah. That's not one thing my dad taught me. Matthew, don't always try and be the best, but always do your best. Yes. When you end up doing your best, you usually are the best 9 times out of 10, I found.
Yes, very true.
Yeah. So, hey, how can our listeners connect with you online if they choose to do so?
Well, you can certainly, look me up on LinkedIn and stuff,
okay.
Cash Miller under Titan Digital and such. I'm a Forbes agency council member and stuff, so I always like connecting. Always like connecting with, other agency owners and stuff. I think it's great for us to, share best practices and whatnot. I don't find that we're necessarily all competing because there's a lot of agencies out there, and so I think
there's a lot of clients.
Yeah, there's always plenty of clients out there for everyone. If you're doing good work, so you can find me there. Let's say we're at titandigital.com, of course. But you can find me on LinkedIn. It's the best way. And if anybody ever wanted to reach out, it's just cash@titandigital.com. So people feel free to email me.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to put that information in the show notes. And again, I want to it's been an absolute. I want to thank you for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great to be on.